Yeah. All good.
Good evening. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayishlach, and the pasuk opens. It's a very colorful sedra because it opens with the confrontation of Esav with Yaakov. We know there was some terrible feeling between Esav that felt that he took the Bechor and he stole the brachas. And now there was the confrontation. The Ramban says that when a person goes to any government meeting, wherever the government is, that he should first say the psukim of Vayishlach at the beginning, the confrontation with Yaakov and Esav, because inherent, etched into the essence of the meeting, were segulas of how a Yid in Golus could deal with government. And even though to us it looks like an interesting story, but it's more than that. It's the Maisa Avos Siman Labonim of how to deal. Now, for instance, we know that there was a Maisa with the Panovich Arov that years ago, I mean, he was Nifter in 1970, but years before that, he was on a train. I don't know if it was in New York or in London, but he was on a train, and in those days, it would happen that he would find himself on a train going for the collection of the tzedakah to support his yeshiva and everything, but he saw on the train that there was a group of shkotzim and they kept eyeing him. And he was carrying a lot of money on him. I mean, the later years, the last 20 years of his life, everywhere he went, somebody drove him, there was a car, but I guess this was early on. And he saw that they were eyeing him and he felt they wanted to rob him. So what did he do? He was alone. He went up to the group of Goyim, teenagers or in their early 20s, and said, you know, I have this and this address that I have to get to. Would you help me with direction? So they answered him and said, we'll take you to where you have to go. And the next stop, get off the train. And we'll get off the train and we'll show you where the address is. As soon as he got off the train, he stood near the train, but he was off the train, and all of these shkotzim got off and were waiting for him to come with them up the stairs, and he felt they were going to rob him. And the minute that the train was emptied out and it was just about to take off, the door started to close, he jumped back on the train. And when he told over this story, and he was asked, like, why did you think of doing that to save yourself? So the Panovich Rav said, I learned it for this week was Parshas Vayishlach. And it says that after the encounter with Esav said, let's go together to Har Seir. And Yaakov Avinu answered him and said, my brother, I don't want to hold you back. You go, because I have a lot of children and youngsters. It's going to go slow. So why not go ahead? In other words, his way of getting out of being near Esav was to separate himself and to get away from him, and that's the way he was able to save himself. So said the Panovich Rav from our Sedra this week. Now, we know that the Parsha opens, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim El Esav Ochiv, and he wanted to make peace. Yaakov Avinu knew that in Golus, we always have to throw a bone to the adversary. That's part of Golus. Mashiach will come, will be dancing with all the luster and fervor and dignity that Yidden will have forever after. 4 million years, 400 million, a long time, but the 4,000 years of Golus, they're going to suffer and they're going to be scapegoated and they're going to have to just swim between the waves, the current, to survive. And that's why it's a lesson in survival. Yaakov Avinu said that Im Yavo Esav El Hamachana Ha'achaz V'hikoyu, that we're going to separate into two camps. And if Esav comes and wipes out one camp, that V'hoya Hamachana Ha'achaz Hanishar Lifleita, that it will remain the refuge. And when they said to the Chofetz Chaim in 1933, he was nifter in 1933, but like 6 months before he was nifter, Hitler, Yamach Shemo, was already gaining speed and steam. And they asked him, maybe we should get out here. He wants to kill all the Yidden. So he said that, the Chofetz Chaim say that will never happen. Because Yaakov Avinu said, V'hoya hamachana hanishar lefleita. Now look how many million Yidden, millions, were killed. But look at the Yishuv afterwards in Eretz Yisrael and in America. That there was hamachana hanishar lefleita, that there was the ability of survival because of what Yaakov Avinu said. That's what the Chofetz Chaim answered. V'hoya hamachana hanishar lefleita, that we will always have an existing group of Yidden that will be able to carry on Klal Yisrael. And you see throughout the Doros that Rome was the power of the world, and then Spain with its Spanish Armada, and Greece. What are those three today? Rome is one of the weakest countries in the world. So is Spain, and so is Greece. They're not England or France or Switzerland, any of these more powerful countries, or Germany. So that was the power of being able to survive the Golus, which Yaakov Avinu set the pace with having met Esav. Now, we know that when Yaakov and Esav finally met, Yaakov Avinu put the Shvachos, Bilhah and Zilpah, and behind them the children. The first thing was the children, they themselves, and then the children, and then Leah with her children behind, and then Yosef and Rachel. So Rashi points out right away that by all of the groups that went to say hello to Esav, he put the Shvachos and their children first, and then Leah and Leah's children, and then Yosef and Rachel. So Rashi says over here, Yosef went before Rachel. By the other three groups, it was first the mothers, and then the children, and then when it came to Yosef and Rachel, Yosef stood in front of Rachel. It wasn't Rachel like in the other cases. So Rashi says, because Yosef said that this Russia will see my mother, and she's very pretty, and I want to block her. Chagveni, that I'm going to block her. Now, how old was Yosef at that point? So the Seder Adoros says he was either 4 or 6. Now, Rachel, the pasuk says, was Yefei Toar, Vifei Mare, Vifei Toar. She was beautiful. So how much could a 4-year-old block his mother? How tall could he have been? 3 feet? She was full stature, so he couldn't have blocked her. And even if he blocked her fully, for a minute or two, I mean, they were hanging around with Esav. This was a few hours. This was, at some point, he was going to see her. So the Meforshim say that there was a miracle, and one quotes a medrash that Yosef stood, this 4-year-old became like 6 feet, that he wasn't able to see Rachel because he was really worried about what's going to be if he sees her and he sees how pretty she is. So there was a miracle done, but then asked the Tolner Rebbe, but even if the miracle was done, at some point he was going to see her. So what did Yosef have in mind to step in front to protect him seeing her? And they answer a very interesting yesod. And that is that a person has to do what he can at that moment for a situation. We are not superhuman, even though there were miracles that happened to Yosef with this story, but we don't know the outcome. We can only, in a way, say we tried our best. And a person could say, listen, it's not going to end up anyway meaning anything, so don't even bother, don't. We learn from Yosef HaTzadik that a person has to put his foot forward, and he was able to be a minimalist. In other words, a person who tries to get the most out of a situation. Now, whether Hashem will then do a miracle for him, that he can't control, and he doesn't know. But that's what Yosef tried at that moment. And the Medrash says on this, that was the kavanah of Yosef by next week's Sedra, by Eshes Potiphar. Because the Medrash says that she said to him, listen, you are fighting me now, and you don't want to do the Aveira. All right, today you're going to succeed, but I'm telling you that tomorrow or the day after you're going to do it. And Yosef said, could be. But meantime, for today, a Yid has to save the day. And you have to be loichem the Yetzer Hara for today. You feel you're falling in, but if I could at least save the day, the Medrash says, that was his cheshbon. And he said to her, I may fall in the future. And don't forget, and we're going to talk about it next week in the actual Parshas Vayeshev, that she said to him at one point, Lishkav etzla lios ima, that either you're going to physically live with me and be intimate in this world, or lios ima in olam haba. In other words, if you tell me now that you'll be with me in Olam Haba because I saw that someone's going to come up from my house that's going to be married to you, and it turned out to be Osnas, who was living in her house, and indeed Yosef HaTzadik married Osnas. But his answer was, save the day, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. Don't make a cheshbon, well, I'm losing the war anyway, I may as well just fall in. By us, when a Yid, as the Balatanya says, fights off the Yetzer Hara, for that minute, there is such a nachas ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he's succeeding in that moment, and he's able to be victorious. And maybe the next day he's going to eat the treif piece of cake that's sitting in front of him, and it looks so delicious, and it looks so tempting, and it looks that he may actually eat it. But if today he didn't, he has tremendous schar for the nachas ruach that he serves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that was the lesson of Yosef HaTzadik in accomplishing to step in front of his mother. And his machshava was, and he knew he was only 4 or 6, and he knew he couldn't fully cover her, but he knew that I have to do whatever I can to save the situation. Now, there is a famous question asked that was Yaakov Avinu merciless? Why would he have put the shvachos? As if to say, okay, look, if someone's going to get killed, let them get killed first, and I'm protecting my Leah and Rachel, and Leah, who I don't love as much as Rachel, so I'm going to put her first. So if all 3 groups are killed, at least I have my Rachel and Yosef left. So the Mefarshim say that was not Chas v'Sholem his cheshbon. But Yosef HaTzadik, that Yaakov Avinu thought, all the years the shvachos were being mistreated. They were always the last in line. They were being teased by the regular shvatim, the ones who were children of actual Leah and Rachel. And, oh yeah, you're the children of the shvachos, the maidservants, and that. So Yaakov Avinu held that they had bigger schusim because of all the bizayon and zilzul that they suffered all the years, that they would have the biggest chus to fight off Esav if he came and fought Yaakov and his wives and children, that he would be able to succeed most with the schusim of the shvachos and their children, because they were the most embarrassed and humiliated all of the years. And that's why many people, if they want in shul to go over to somebody that maybe doesn't have a house to go to for the Seder or Shabbos to eat, they're not just looking for the person who is the most bakovidik and the most special, but that they are looking for a person who's in need the most. Like Rav Pam used to tell over that his father, when Rav Pam was a teenager, used to say, look around in shul Friday night, look if you see someone that needs a place to eat. And he came over to someone and said, we would love to invite you. So the person answers him and says, I am just a simple nobody, and now you really want me to come to your house? And he answers and says, our family is looking for someone who will enjoy the zmiris and enjoy the freshly cooked food that's available at our Shabbos table, and enjoy that. We're not looking for someone that's rich, famous, powerful, the biggest Baal Madrega. We're looking for a Yid to enjoy a Shabbos Seudah. Again, that same concept of what Yaakov was lining up, the ones who he felt had the most chusim because they suffered the most of the year, and he wanted to turn the experience in to the most healthy, positive experience, that should there be an attack, we needed our biggest ammunition and most powerful schusim, rich with all the schusim, to be in the front line. And that's why he put them in that order. Now, the pasuk says that Yaakov Avinu said, "V'revach tosimu bein eder uvein eder." That let's leave, we're going to make two camps, let's leave space in between the groupings. So the Balaturim and others talk about that the only place we find the word revach, a space, is by Esther when Mordechai sent her a message that revach v'hatzola yamod la Yehuda mimokom acher. That's the only two places, and he explains what shayches does this parsha of Yaakov Avinu with Esav and the anticipated fighting and milchama have to do. What's the common ground of that revach word and this? Because we have to know that we cannot be combative, as I mentioned before, in Golus. And that was the idea that Yaakov Avinu thought that, look, if there's a fight and half of the group is wiped out, we have another half that's still there. So that Reva, it wasn't an attitude, we will fight to the last. And you know, there was a movement in the 60s and 70s to free Jews in Russia. It was the Iron Curtain, and it was really tough to get a Jew out. And I was once even asked to get a certain scientist, a Jewish firm scientist, and the Russians didn't want him out because he knew too much. And in Washington, I had the Russian ambassador called into a room, and I took 8 senators to speak to him. And I saw at the end it wouldn't work anyway. This guy was so combative and so like, how dare you even ask us, huh? So Reagan was meeting with Gorbachev then, and I went with 3 of the senators to the White House, to the president. We asked him to get this guy out, and he said, look, I was given a list by this group, this Russian group, the Jewish group to save Russian Jewry, with 100,000 names. And the Russians said to me, listen, there's no way we're letting out 100,000. Give us a list of 50 that you want out. And this Grisha Rosenstein was the second name on that list of 50. And he came out, and I brought him to the White House. He thanked President Reagan for it, and he held a big picture up in his living room, and he lived in Hebron. When he left Russia, he moved to, and one of the universities gave him a top professorship in his field. So the tzaddikim told me at that time that when you meet with the president, make sure that the approach is submission. We're not out to fight them. Don't threaten them with tariffs and threaten them with no threatening. You have to go in golus with the goy, benichusa, softly. I mean, we have hairs on the tefillin, as the Arizal says, is to throw a bone to the Sitra Achra, who is burning with the schus of putting on a pair of tefillin. So we try to calm him down. We put the hairs on for him. That's why those hairs are sticking out of the shell rosh. And for Mayim Achroinim, which the Gemara says we wash because of the salt on our fingers, that we shouldn't touch our eyes with it, that they used to have a dangerous salt that they ate their food with that gave it a very good flavor and taste, that we do not wash Mayim Achronim. The Arizal said, Al Pi Kabbalah. In other words, the Gemara says it's to take the Melech Sodomus off your fingers. But the reason Al Pi Kabbalah is after a Suda Shabbos, where a Yid B'Hislavos sings Zmiris and says Divrei Torah and keeps all the shtusim and nonsense off the table, the Suda Shabbos. It's not the time to talk about Trump or the stock market or what's doing here and there. It's the time for singing, eating, and saying Divrei Torah, because it's like the Shulchan is the Mizbeach. And it says that at the end of the Suda, the Samech Mem is so upset, because what a Yid does when he's sitting at his Suda Shabbos, that he's mamish, they're dancing in Shemayim. This is the biggest nachas ruach, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we wash Mayim Achronim. The Arizal says, Al Pi Kabbalah, it's not because of the Melech Sodomus. That's Al Pi Nigla. That's Al Pi the regular format. But he says that the reason Al Pi Kabbalah is to throw a bone to the Samach Mem. That is why we do what we do. Now, the Pasuk says that there is there was a fight with Yaakov Avinu and the Sar Shel Esav. So many say that this Sar Shel Esav wanted to get the brachas back from Yaakov. They felt he stole them and they wanted it back. And Yaakov Avinu said, don't be so upset about the brachas. Look what happened to me. I got the brachas, and none of the brachas were makuyim. So the Mefarshim explain that Yaakov Avinu was saying, you are Michra Chayom, and told us that's what you said. In other words, the Hayom, the whole life is only what you can chop around today. The taivas, the money, the enjoy this, enjoy that. We are not a Klal Yisrael of today. We do today because of Olam Haba, what's going to be when Mashiach will come, all of this. So we're living for today to do our best because of the tomorrow. And you're only Chayom. You want the today. And today, look at what I have from the brachas. Nothing. Now, how could Yaakov have said that the brachas were nothing? So they explain what I just said to you. That Yaakov Avinu was saying, we are very satisfied not to see the benefits of those brachas for years to come, because that's what Klal Yisrael is all about in Olam Hazeh. We don't need the instant gratification and the immediate response of something. I mean, who do you think was more wise or more happy in their lives? Our great-great-grandfathers without the fax machine, without the cell phone, without the immediate. We can't cook on a stove, we need a microwave, so that in 10 seconds we should have the food ready. Chas v'sholom, to have it cook on the regular thing and wait a half an hour, wait 2 hours, you have the microwave. They didn't have it. And believe me, they were not less wise. They understood life better, and they were more at peace with themselves and their families than, we can't use a fax machine. We need email, so that it should be now, not an hour from now, not 10 minutes from now. So that's really what Yaakov Avinu said to the Sar Shel Esav when he fought with him. Now, there are many things that they were fighting about. And at the end of the story, the Sar Shel Esav hit him in his thigh, and the pasuk says, and he was limping, which means that even when we have a fight with the Yetzer Hara or with the Satan, and we win, but we're going to go away from the fight, because in Golus, we always have a mark from the effects of what the Goy does to us and how we live our lives. We are not exempt that we're suddenly under the heavenly bliss, that we are so at peace and so that's when Mashiach will come. And Klal Yisrael will see that their loyalty to our Kodesh Baruch Hu paid off big time. But until then, we are dodging the firing squad of the Yetzer Hara every single day of our lives. And we are limping because of it. Now, Klal Yisrael doesn't eat that sciatic, that git hanosha. And even in most schlachthäusers, the back portion of the cow, they sell to treif because it's very hard to get it out, that git hanosha. Now there are some mumchim in Eretz Yisrael that rare, but they do get it out because they don't want to lose the value in the sirloin steak, the porter steak, which is pure treif. I hope no yid ever tastes it, but it tastes a lot better than the rib steak. Everyone says it. The goyim, talk to the goyim. The expensive steak houses, it's sirloin or it's porter, and it tastes much better. And we, Baruch Hashem, are very happy with the rib steak. We don't need, that, but it's treif. We can't, unless that the mumcha takes up, but you're playing with fire, and that's why 99% of shachtim will not touch the area where the sciatica is, because there's tiny remnants all over the place, and to really get it out that you should be able to eat any of the meat, it's a tremendous feat, and that's why no one wants to take the responsibility and no one wants to do it. And indeed, over 90% of schlachthäusers don't touch it. They have a customer for that part of the cow, and that's what they eat. Now, the Arizal says that what was one of the items they were fighting about? It was Chodesh Elul. You see, the three Yaakov and Esav saw that there are going to be some months under the hashpah of Yaakov, under Yidden, and some are going to be under Esav. So Yaakov Avinu ran and captured Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan, so that Yidden could have in those months Pesach, Pesach Sheni, and Shavuos. And Esav, says the Medrash, ran and took Tammuz, Av, and Elul. Now Tammuz and Av stayed with him because Yaakov Avinu, it says, knew that something he has to give him till Mashiach will come. And he got the Tammuz and Av, and that's how we had the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, Bais Rishon, Bais Sheni. That's how we had the story of the Egel. That's how we had so much negative happening to Klal Yisrael in Tammuz and Av, because that was under the umbrella of Esav. But what bothered Yaakov Avinu was that he grabbed also Elul, because he took three. And Yaakov Avinu said, how can Yidden go into Rosh Hashanah without having Elul? They need the Elul. And that was one of the, and as a matter of fact, and he won that fight. In other words, when he won 20 issues, as the Arizal says, that was pending, that the Samech Mem wanted to win over Klal Yisrael, and they lost. And one of them was this, it says the Arizal, the Elul. And the Arizal explains in the Pasuk, Aromimcha Hashem ki di lisani. We say in Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis LaDavid, every single day by Shachris. We say Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis LaDavid. So the Arizal explains, Aromimcha Hashem ki di lisani, that on those letters, Di Lisani, Daled Lamed Tov Nun Yud, how he explains, it takes around 10 minutes to fully explain it, so I'm not going to go into it right now. But I could tell you that anyone who's interested, give me a call or whatever, I'll be happy to explain to you how those letters represent Elul, and Dili Soni, Yaakov Avinu brought it back to himself. And the Daled Lamed Tov is Elul. And I'll explain you how in the letters it comes out. But the bottom line is, it came out that Yaakov Avinu got back and he only had 2 months. And Yaakov Avinu got the Elul to be under him also. And that was a tremendous success for Yaakov Avinu, says the Arizal, that he was able to pull it back over in his fight with the Sar Shel Esav. Now, Yaakov Avinu asked him, Ma shemecha, what is your name? Because Yaakov Avinu you see, a shirish of a name, when a person gives a name, let's say for a newborn girl, when he says that name by the Sefer Torah, all the Mekubalim say, he has for that 10 seconds pure Ruach HaKodesh. You'll find that there's many people who discussed with their wives what name to give a newborn child, and they agreed on a name, and they came to the Sefer Torah, to the Gabbai, and when the Gabbai says, V'yikarei Shema b'Yisrael, and they said a different name. They wanted to say Leah, and they said Rachel. And I've seen it happen on 2 or 3 occasions, such a thing. And that name once you say it, that's the name. And they said, what did I do over here? How am I going to go home? My wife is going to be blazing when I get... Because the Ruach HaKodesh took over. And to the Chidushi Arim, somebody came and said, Rebbe, my wife gave birth to a baby girl, and this Shabbos I'm giving the name. What name does the Rebbe think I should give? And he said, you have Ruach HaKodesh in your life only those times that you're giving a name, and you want me to take it away from you and tell you which name to give? Don't be ridiculous. The Chidushi Arim said this to that Ger Chosed. Chidushi Arim was nifter around 1870 or 1860. So, and the koyach is the shoirish neshama. That's why the Gemara says somebody who calls somebody by a nickname. That means a girl's name is Leah. And they call her Lakey. The whole family, it's a nickname. So the Gemara says, Ein lo chelik liolam haba, because you took the essence of neshama away from the person. And that's why it was Adam Harishon gave the names to even the animals. Because he took a look at the animal, say the Mekubalim, and he knew the shoyrish of the animal and what it has to do in this world. And on that basis, he gave them the name with pure Ruach HaKodesh. So when we give a name, we're not playing a game. It's nice to call a name this or call that. But we are actually capturing the essence of the neshama. And that's why by tzaddikim gemurim, when Chassan Kala came to them for a bracha that the shidduch should work out, many times the Rebbe, and this has to be real tzaddikim, I don't mean just simple rabbanim, they took a look at the names and they said, add a name by the Sefer Torah to the man. Yosef or David. And the person, if his name was Yaakov Yitzchak, from now on it was Yosef Yaakov Yitzchak. And they did it with a Mishaberach at the Sefer Torah. Because the tzaddik saw that for this zivug to work out and that there would not be machloikis, they had to add to the shoirish neshama a name that was not given. And this was really only the biggest of the big tzaddikim that were able to look at the kvittel and to know the difference. So Yaakov Avinu asked, Ma shemecha, what is your name? What is the essence of you as a Yetzer Hara, that he wanted to know how to capture the essence of this Yetzer Hara, this Samach Mem, and be mevatel it. So the Sar Shalesav answered, Lama zet tishal l'shmi. What are you asking me my name? It's because you don't understand that by me, I'm the Koyach Hara. And that I change my name to fashion and to fit the occasion. Sometimes I'm communism, sometimes I'm fascism, sometimes I'm socialism, and sometimes I'm Marxism. And every generation, how I can capture Jews, by the communists, the smartest and the best of the communists were all Jews. They were able to get 90 million people, 100 million people to follow them when it was pure air. It was a balloon filled with nothing. And they, Baruch Hashem, there was a koyach hatov of tzaddikim who gave their lives and kept the yeshivas underground to fight the isms of kfira and apikursis and everything that they offered in these isms, and that they were able to come out fortified and well. And the Arizal said that the chesed that comes, that from the Yud Gimel Midas Arachim, from the beards, that when someone has a beard, he's not cutting off the chesed and the rachamim. So that's why, like in Chabad, one of the ikr things was, while the communists, was not to touch their beards. Because that shoirish of what the beard causes would be a staple in keeping their Yiddishkeit. And there were Yidden that were ready to give their lives to keep the beard on. Now, I'm not criticizing someone who shaves. In other words, lahalocha, a person can shave. I'm speaking al pi Kabbalah. But a person who knows al pi Kabbalah that this is the backbone of the chesed that comes to him based on his beard, he should at least know it. And that's why many people later in life, they start to grow a beard. Reb Chaim Kamenetsky, the last 10 years of his life, Zecher Tzadik v'Kodesh Levracha, who finished Shas and Rambam and Yerushalmi every year. Everything. When people came in the last 10 years, many, many times, I can't say every time, but I know somebody in Borough Park who had a weak heart, and he came into Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and he said, wish me please gesund, that I should be able to have arichas yomim, to be able to grow a beard. That's what he answered him. And his wife didn't want the beard. But the husband said, you want me alive? That's what Reb Chaim said. So he grew the beard. She agreed. She felt she was up against, she couldn't weather that storm. So the point being that we have to know that we are absolutely in a state of golus. We don't always find ourselves the winner. As I started to tell you, that the tzaddikim told these groups for Russian Jewry, you can march and you can try politically and 10 ways, but don't fight. And a lot of times these groups, when they would come to a group that would be against them, they would beat them up. And tzaddikim were against that. So I'm not saying they're like Meir Kahana. His kavanah was a very good one, except for the actual physical, and not because I'm saying it, because tzaddikim said. And as a matter of fact, but they called him a fascist, or they called him all these names that they felt they wanted them not to run for the Knesset, or not to win, or not to come into the Knesset, because he was a bad guy. But everything that he said, now 30 years later, we see that he was 100% right. That they can't coexist totally, because it's just the source of the cultures and everything, the Eis of Sonei Yaakov, that it is there and it is alive and it is well and everything, that is, like you see on the college campuses today, not a story of 100 years ago. And the President-elect Trump issued a statement that if there's going to be, when I become president, any campuses that allow the it's not just anti-Israel, it's anti-Semitism, I'm going to take away their accreditation and their money. The grants, that some of them get $300 million a year from the federal government, $500 million, I'm going to take it away. So we will stop the anti-Semitism in the actual college campuses. Not that he said that will stop worldwide, because like Curtis Sliwa said, it's in the DNA of every goy, himself included, that there's something in there itching against the Jew. Said it. And I discussed it with him when he was sitting right here in my dining room talking to me one day, this statement of his. And he said, yeah, I said it and I mean it, and let's call a spade a spade. Yeah, so he didn't deny it to me. Now, there is a famous question: how did Yaakov Avinu, with all of his wives and children, bow down to Esav? Bow down to Esav, who was the Amud HaTumah, the Baal Aveira, the Rasha. You bow down to him? So the Zohar HaKadosh asks that question and answers that the Shekhinah appeared in front of them, so they didn't even see Esav when they were bowing. They only saw the Shekhinah. And they were bowing to the Shekhinah, not to Esav. Esav didn't see it. He thought they were bowing to him as part of the panorama of Golos, that the Yid has to bow to the Goy until Mashiach will come. But the pasuk says that after they finished the encounter, V'Yaakov nosa Sukkosa, that Yaakov went to Sukkot, and the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says that he lived in the city that they called Sukkos 18 months. Now the pasuk says that after he got out of walking with Esav, and he remained separate, that Baruch Hashem, he thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he was alive and no one was killed and no one was hurt. He came to the place, Sukkos, and he stayed there. Vayiven lo Bais, he built a house. Ulemikneu, and for his cattle, also Sukkos. Al Kain Kara Shem HaMokum Ahu, Sukkos. So the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, what? The first thing he came there and he built was a house? He was worried about the comfort for his family. Huh? So the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, when it says bias, it means Beis HaMedrash. A person moves to a community or moves to a different city, the first thing they have to check out is, where is the nearest shul? Where is the nearest yeshiva? Where is the strongest Jewish community? Not just where is a house. And then they'll figure out how much they have to walk, 2 miles to a shul. That, says the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, etched into the essence of the neshamas of Klal Yisrael, to always want to be around a flock, a group of Yidden, and to make sure that they have a Beis HaMedrash as the first thing, the mikveh, the Beis HaMedrash, available and near them from this pasuk. But Mefarshim asked, because the Torah Shulchan Aruch says that the 3 Yomim Tovim are connected the 3 Avos. Avram Avinu is connected Pesach because it says Lushi Va'asiu goes, and she was baking matzahs. So Pesach is connected Avram Avinu. Yitzchak Avinu is connected the Akedah, which was Mesiras Nefesh, and that's why we take the shofar from the Akedah, that when Mashiach will come and they blow shofar, it's going to be that same shofar that they're going to be blowing. And that was Matan Torah also, that they blew that shofar. And that's the reason that we attach Yitzchak Avinu from the Akedah to Shavuos. But why is Yaakov Avinu attached to Sukkot? So the Medrash says, and the Chazal said, because it says this pasuk, that he called the city Sukkot. That's a reason to attach Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, we know his yortzeit is the first day of Sukkot. So says the Bnei Yissaschar, that it was Sukkot. But that's the reason that the Torah Shulchan Aruch gives. I mean, the Torah Shulchan Aruch, the Tzaddikim said that if you want to be Metayr and Mezachech your neshama, learn Torah Shulchan Aruch. And he says, because he named the place Sukkah, is that? And where's the word Sukkos? Ulemikneu also Sukkos, because he made for the cattle Sukkos. So the Mefarshim are saying that's not what it means. What it means is that you put Ruchnius first. He built a house, which was a Beis HaMedrash for his family. Ulemikneu, and to the Gashmias, also Sukkos, temporary huts, like little huts, to protect them from the cold and from the rain and for all of that. But it was secondary. It wasn't a separate house that he built for them. He made them a temporary house, a little hut, that there should be some protection for them, but not to make it the Iker, and to teach that the Iker is the Ruchnius in life, and then we worry about all of the Gashmias, not to put the Ruchnius second and to put the Gashmias first. And we know that Sukkos, Yaakov Avinu was the Bechir Sheba'avos. He was the one that had the schus to have the Yud Beis Shiftei Ka, not Avram and not Yitzchak. So it was in his schus because he was Megan for the whole Golus that Klal Yisrael should be able to survive. And that's why Bikesh Yaakov L'Galus HaSaketz. He wanted to bring Mashiach right then and there because he saw what trouble and devastation Jews will live throughout the history until Mashiach comes. So he tried his best, Nistalka Mimenu Hashchina. HaKadosh Baruch said, not yet. You're not going to be able to succeed with this. Now, the pasuk says that when Esav saw Yaakov and all of his, he said, Vayishlach Esav, he picked up his eyes, Esav, and he looked at Vayar, Es Hanoshim, Ve'es Hayelodim, Vayomer mi eilalach, who's all these people? Vayomar, Hayelodim asher chonan Elokim esavdecha. So there's an obvious kasha. He had a question about all the women and the children. You said that you wanted the ruchnias, the bechor, the brachas. You were busy with so many women and so many children. So he answered him only about the children. He asked about the Vayaris Hanoshim Ves Hayelodim, the women and the children. Vayomar, and he answered him, Hayelodim asher chonan Elokim esavdecha. Because he said, you have a question, all these human beings, you think I was oisik in just Gashmias and Taiva or whatever? The whole purpose was Hayelodim asher chonan Elokim esavdecha. That all these women was the purpose of protecting and producing a Klal Yisrael for the world to have, for Nitzchias, for eternity, and to possess all of the richness of the spirituality which will descend down to this world and become a world of Olam Haba. And there's a story by Reb Levi Yitzchak Barditchev that he once ran into the apikoros of his city, Barditchev. And the apikoros said to him, Rebbe, I want to ask you a question. You put on tefillin every day, and I put on tefillin every day. When I take an apple, I make a bracha, and so do you. So why the whole city holds you in such high esteem, and I'm the Rosh Marusha? So the Barditchever answered him and said, you're a yid with a neshama, you can do tshuva for many of the things you're busy doing and you have done. But when I see an apple tree, I want to scream out a bracha because the magnificence of the smell of the reach of the apple tree, sdei tapuchem, and the greenery of the leaves around, it's magnificent. I want to scream out, but I'm not allowed to say a bracha to eat. I must eat the apple, or it's a bracha of Atala. But by you want to eat the apple. You don't want to scream out the bracha, but you can't eat the apple unless you make the bracha. So it's the exact opposite. So you have to refine your motivation. So I want to say to each and every one of you listening to this year that we should set our motivation straight. When we make a bracha, when we do a mitzvah, we should think, Rabbana Shalom, I am doing this for a nachas ruach to you. You should know in terms of the schus that a yid has in his lifetime, gathering schusim each and every day. When he gives tzedakah to the ani, or he gives coffee to someone who's thirsty, not, oh, I'm doing this so the guy should think of me as a nice guy, and think of me that, wow, look what he's doing, such a mitzvah. Rabbana Shalom, I am doing it so you should be happy with what your children are doing here in Olam Hazeh. Have a good Shabbos.